I'd like to explain the importance of living history museums, particularly in American history, the Virginia settlements of Williamsburg and Jamestown. Living history museums are an abstract version of museums where, rather than images and screens or statues, you are able to interact with an active, living version of this history. Some more basic versions can be the houses of certain influential people from the time, but this particular one in Williamsburg or Jamestown, these particular ones, do have actors who are showing you the different tasks that the colonists may have done at the time, rather than the image students have in their head of pilgrims in teepees and roasting food over an open fire. You can see that they were active cities, similar to how Britain may have been, but they are in a different culture in America. This shows you to empathize with the colonists in their frustration with Britain's rule and their taxation without representation, because these are different areas. They have their own culture of living, they have their own ways, and they have established over time how to work as a community. These ones in particular, as previously said, are ones that have actors, and they have different buildings that you can see, different shops, and how they would have done things at the time. You can see printing presses that you can imagine this was how Thomas Paine printed out his versions and copies of Common Sense and handed them out. You can imagine being a colonist and walking on the boats, or see the difference between how the more basic colonists were living compared to the more influential people who had these huge houses in comparison. You can see the actors who are explaining the soldiers and explaining how the medicine was at the time. It's an extremely immersive experience that provides a different view and is really an abstract version of a museum. In this case, it creates an amazing way of looking at American history and looking at colonization. Jamestown and Williamsburg are extremely influential cities in American history because of their success as communities. I personally took this trip to these specific museums in Virginia in 6th grade. This was almost 5 years ago, and I still feel the impact whenever I move on to a new American history class compared to the one that I took back then. After I took this trip, I viewed it in a different light. Whenever I heard about the stories of the different colonists, I could imagine and I could think about how they may have felt because of experiencing their life as my own. You can see the boats, and you can see the cities, you can see the homes, you can see the shops. It provides a new experience that's really important. Miss Lindsey Cranton explains the uniqueness of the museums in their mix of entertainment and education. It shows the way that this can be extremely effective to students, because obviously students really respond well to a more entertaining version of history, a more entertaining retelling. When you're able to walk through, imagery is extremely important to students, and in this case, it is really helpful to experience this as an American history student. Miss Clara Silverstein explains a different perspective. She reviews the discrepancies possibly, but she does eventually explain that she does think that this is a important and effective method of learning. She explains other sources that are explain the validity and the accurateness of these settlements and their recreations. As said, this is a very intense and effective way of experiencing these settlements, particularly Jamestown and Williamsburg, and seeing how these colonies may have lived and understanding in a new light. I do believe that this is a extremely important trip to take, and even for an adult, especially if they are not as familiar with American history, it really shows you a way of understanding the differences from before and understanding how important American history is to understanding the buildup of our nation. Once again, this helps you to empathize, this helps you to learn, this helps you to remember. These are extremely interesting and also influential and effective in learning.